Welcome to tonight's meeting, public information meeting regarding the Crego Farm development. I'm Claude Sykes, Town Supervisor. To my left is Anthony Geis. He's the Chairman of the Planning Board. Down on the lower level is Brandon Jacobson. He's the developer. His company's name is Rolex. We're going to do things a little differently tonight. Some of the things I'll be saying sound familiar if you were in on Tuesday night's meeting. Tuesday night's meeting was recorded and has been posted on the town's website, townofvanburen.com. PAC-B, whichever channel or whichever cable service you use, will have both Zoom meetings up on their channels, respective channels, on air at some point in the not too distant future. So people will be able to watch them there as well. We wish these meetings could have been held in person, but with the COVID-19 restrictions, that's not possible at this time. As the project review progresses, at some point in the future, it may be appropriate for additional public information meetings to present update dates, possibly face-to-face meetings, depending on the COVID situation. I want to thank again those who have contacted town with their thoughts, comments, and questions, and please continue to do so by emailing them to clerk@townofvanburen.com. I want to start out by saying that the court of public opinion has no bearing on whether or not the town board or the planning board takes up this review, the project review. We have no choice. We're required to do so, or we could be subjecting the town to lawsuits. This is not a town project. It is a landowner and a developer. We're seeking to see if the property in question can in fact be developed within the town's codes and within other parameters set by outside agencies. Public outcry is not something we can consider to deny due process. These public information meetings are not to debate the pros and cons of the project, but are meant to inform and educate the public the best we can at this time as to what the proposed project entails and what the vision of the developer is. Public hearings will be held later on in the process of reviewing the project. That is time for public comments, either for or against the project. Again, like Tuesday night, there'll probably be many questions that we'll not be able to answer since the project has to go through the full comprehensive and coordinated planning board review process. And a lot of the answers will come from the federal, state, and local agencies that will be solicited for their input and feedback. This review process can be found on the town's website at townofvanburen.com. Again, that's townofvanburen.com. We expect the entire process to take several months and could possibly run into 2022. The town wants this process to be as transparent as possible, as evidenced by holding these two public information meetings. If you have questions, comments, or concerns, please email them to clerk@townofvanburen.com at any time during this process, which, like I said, is likely to be several months. We're going to do things a little different tonight. We're going to have Brandon from Rolex go over the concept map and point out a few things, I guess, give a little orientation and some of the features that are shown on that concept plan. Brandon?
Yep. Brandon Jacobson from Rolex.
You want to go right up there, and that mic there, that will probably pick you up, and the camera mic is closer tonight so we can hopefully pick your voice up better.
Got me on, Jason?
I got you.
Okay. So the roughly 100-acre parcel that's proposed here, which is originally considered the Crego farm, we've got 690 that's running parallel to the property, and from Kregel Road and Tappan Street, we're proposing two different entrances that will eventually have a full traffic pattern to circulate out to those two entrances and exits. We do not have any intentions of using Hunter Drive. This will just be a fire break, but we do have to have access. The fire department's requested but it will not be for regular traffic. Out of the 124 single-family home sites, all of them are inclusive inside the subdivision besides Lot 9, will have access from Hunter Drive. They'll be considered part of the subdivision. Obviously, it will be more into the Hunter Drive area because that's where the driveway will be. We proposed this plan because of the success that we've had over at Traybrook, which is the former Sanitary golf course. And Van Buren being a great town, Baldwinsville Schools being a desirable school district, we've had a lot of demand. And in conjunction with that, there were some things that we did when we developed Traybrook that we thought we could improve upon. And part of that is being able to utilize our stormwater facilities as green space areas to give more patrons the ability to have more separation from their neighbors in the backyards. After the pandemic of the last year, I think a lot of families have created the home front to be their own oasis, traveled as much. So we figured that the backyard space has become extremely important. And therefore, we've tried to maintain, though your lot might not be as big as it feels, you can be able to enjoy the fact that it might feel like an acre of land, though you've only owned a third of an acre. We also understand that there's really a housing shortage right now in Onondaga County, especially, and nationally it's going on. And part of that shortage is that there's less than a 5% vacancy rate in all of Onondaga County in the apartments. And so we thought with the rising cost of materials and home building costs, we have to have another component for people that want to enjoy the community. And by doing that, we figured that we would build some type of rental component within this community. And we've proposed 6 separate buildings, 36 units apiece, 3 stories with an elevator in each building. These little boxes here that border 690 are garages that will be for lease for the patrons that decide to live in the community. We will not build all the apartments at once. It's obviously a feasibility issue where, we want to make sure that they're all rented and the demand stays. So we'll probably propose building 2 buildings at a time. We have to still do some more research on National Grid because there are some power lines that run through the community here that were proposed. And again, I would like to repeat that I know the supervisors repeated, this is a concept plan. We don't expect this to be the plan. We don't expect that there's not going to be any changes, but this was what we call our first crack at it. And really the most beautiful piece of all the property is the almost 2,000 feet of waterfront that we have from the Seneca River. So we felt that we'd like to maintain having individual lots so different patrons can enjoy the Seneca River and build the house that they want to be able to enjoy the amenities there on the river.
Brandon, on the apartments, can you speak to, they're not going to be Section 8, they'll be market value and some rough idea what that rate might be? So our company has a few other apartment projects right now that we're currently, one's will be under construction in the next 60 days. Market rate as well. And when I say market rate, they're going to be amenities with solid surface countertops. You're going to have laundry facilities within the units. Some of them will have porches and decks. Most will be 2-bedroom units. Some will be 1. There might be a few 3. And we're going to have luxury vinyl tile floors, quiet shut cabinets. So these apartments will still be a nice product that we'll be proud of. And I would think your rents will probably start somewhere in the $1,300 or $1,200 a month range, up to maybe $1,500 to $1,600 a month. Anything else you can think of? The Shaw's house, and so people can have a point of reference. Stewart's and Shaw's house.
So the 2 properties here, which are the historic properties, are obviously they're carved out. They're not ours. We do not own them. I would say the other piece is the lots. So though it doesn't look like it because it's such a big parcel, when we did Traybrook, the average lot was about 80 feet by 160 deep, 80 feet wide. Every lot that I have on here is minimally 100 feet wide right now. I'm not saying that we won't have some smaller lots, but we've seen, again, post-pandemic, backyards, green space has been extremely important for people. And we've had a lot of demand for some nicer homes and some more expensive houses. And so we feel that by giving some opportunity, maybe not all the lots being this big, but there will be some bigger lots, some even ranging, around an acre. So we can have a bigger range of houses and a lot of different price points to service the community. And I think I touched on most of it. Again, the utilities, there's a pump station down here for the public sanitary. And we will be working with GZA, our engineer, to make sure that all the capacity and the studies are done so that we're meeting the requirements for that, as well as the stormwater prevention plans. Again, this is our first look at it. We have to really, the site has a nice gentle grade slope to it towards the river. We will work with them diligently to make sure that we're doing the most effective way for the stormwater to maintain, catch, and release at a good rate. I think that's really good.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Brandon. As I said Tuesday night, there was a previous proposal that the owners of the property thought about, which would have had this site with 1,000 apartment units on it and some solar west of the High Line. We think this is a big step up from that proposal. I don't think anybody really wanted 1,000 apartment units, so this is much better. We have some questions that are frequently asked, so I'm going to read through those and I'm going to answer those. So they'll be asked and answered. Some of them were asked Tuesday night. Some have been asked in emails or phone calls. So I'm going to go through those frequently asked questions and then we'll move on from there. Number one, will the proposed community have any commercial properties? The answer is no. The zone change request under consideration to the town is strictly for residential use. Number two, will there be a connection to Hunter Drive from the proposed community? As Brandon pointed out there on the concept plan, there will be a linkage to Hunter Drive, but it will be gated for emergency access only, fire, ambulance, police. This access will allow emergency services another entry to both the proposed community and to the Comstock track should it ever be needed. Number three, will the proposed community be connected to sanitary sewers? Yes, the proposed community would be connected to the Onondaga County sewer system. Number four, will the new community provide sewers to the Comstock track? No. However, sewer connections would be provided at the new community should the Comstock track wish to pursue sewers in the future. Number five, will the proposed community raise my assessment and property taxes? No, the proposed community will be on its own separate neighborhood for assessments. What outside agencies will be asked for input on the proposed community? By the way, this list will be put up on our website here in the town, townofvanburen.com. Currently, the list of agencies include the Syracuse Onondaga County Planning Agency, Onondaga County Department of Water and Environment Protection, Onondaga County Department of Transportation, Onondaga County Water Authority, Onondaga County Sheriff's Department, New York State Department of Environmental Conservation, New York State Parks and Historic Preservation Office, New York State Department of Transportation, New York State Canal Corps, Village of Baldwinsville, Baldwinsville Central School District, United States Army Corps of Engineers, Greater Baldwinsville Ambulance Corps, Northwest Fire District, National Grid, and Buckeye Pipeline. Like I say, this whole list will be up on the website. Number seven, how would the new community impact local traffic? According to the developer's traffic impact study, a majority of the traffic from the proposed community would travel along Kregel Road. Most of that traffic would turn right toward New York State Route 690. The traffic impact study states that a dedicated right turn lane would be required on Kregel Road at the Kregel Road Downer Street Court intersection. The traffic impact study is available for review on the town's website. Number 8, what is being done to identify and preserve potential cultural historic items on the Kregel Farm property? As part of the planning board's review and secret process, which is state environmental quality review process, SHPO's Department of Historic Preservation will be contacted for their input for identification and preservation of historical artifacts. It should be noted that the town has already been in contact with the Department of Historic Preservation regarding the proposed project. Will there be sidewalks to the village or along Kregel Road as part of the development? The idea for sidewalks will be part of the planning board's review process. Number 10, why has the developer asked for a zone change to planned unit development PUD? The town's code includes a PUD zoning to allow for mixed uses on a parcel. In the case of the Kregel Farm property, the developer has asked for a zone change to PUD to allow for varying single home lot sizes / setbacks and for apartment buildings. It should be noted that the PUD zone does have provisions for commercial uses. However, the zone change request for the proposed community has no commercial components. Number 11, would the proposed apartments be subsidized or Section 8 housing? No, the apartments will be marketed as rented as market rate, as Brandon pointed out when he was over at the concept plan there. That's the most frequently asked questions, and I'm going to get into a few other ones. There are questions regarding street lighting. A lighting district would be formed to allow for municipal street lighting. However, it may be decided that private lighting may be preferred during the planning board review process. That will be more or less left up to what the developer thinks his clients would desire. I understand there are questions regarding the 5 structures shown on the plan in the apartment area up against Route 690. As Brandon pointed out, those are garages that will be leased to people that would like to house their car. The list of these, as I said earlier, the list of these frequently asked questions regarding this project is on the town website. They will be up in the next few days. As you can tell, the town's website has and will have a lot of information regarding this project, and residents should utilize the website as a resource. It will have the very best information we can offer throughout the review process. Okay, getting into how we're going to conduct the rest of the meeting tonight. Questions will be submitted through the chat feature on your Zoom program. If there's time at the end, additional time for additional comments, questions will be allotted. We ask that people sending their chat message not to ask repetitive questions or make repetitive comments, as was experienced on Tuesday night. I think there'll probably be some of the same questions as it was Tuesday night, but the answers are going to be the same. If you have problems with your chat feature, feel free to email your questions, comments to the town at clerk@townofvanburen.com. Obviously, there's no one in the office at this hour of the night, but you can email them tomorrow or whatever, and we'll try to get those answered. Okay, as the Tuesday night meeting, we'll run this meeting till 9 if needed, or we may stop short of that, like we did about 8:30 or whenever, if we run out of questions. And the last thing and most important thing, if you're gonna use the chat box, please state your name and address, and then put your question or comment in. With that, we can start, Jason.
All right, we've got our first question here from Michelle on Hunter Drive. I keep hearing proposed. What is the alternative proposal? Why can the developer keep the I believe that's probably, why can't the developer keep the R40 zoning? What is the big push for the apartments? Does the town board seriously think we need more apartments? How many apartment buildings do we have currently in Baldwinsville?
I can answer it. When you're doing a development and you have, as a developer, we incur all the expense of the roads, sewers, Aqua, which is the water authority, drainage, and obviously with the way the building material costs are, and as everybody sees in the real estate market these days, the housing prices have risen. We have to make the product affordable for the patrons that want to live in the area. Cost is a factor. And the bigger the lots, there's less lots to sell, and the price point gets higher. As far as the apartments go, I'm sure there are a lot of apartments in the area. There's apartments throughout Onondaga County, but the apartments are full. And we've been fortunate enough in this county to draw a lot of new employment, with hopefully some more employment to be coming. And there's going to be people moving from out of Onondaga County to here as a destination, and we have to have a place for them to live. It helps our economy grow locally, as well as supports the local municipalities so that they can service the existing patrons that live in the area.
I assume, Brandon, that there's been market surveys done that says that apartments are still needed?
Absolutely. Again, as I stated before, we're at less than a 5% occupancy rate throughout Onondaga County, as well as we're not building all the apartments at once. We will build them probably 3 phases, which would be roughly 64 apartments at a time, because obviously if we're spending that type of capital, we want to make sure that it's sustainable and rentable.
All right. And then Andy Bowes, my questions are somewhat esoteric involving green initiatives and dust control. Will they unmute the residents? Well, I can speak to dust control. Dust control is handled under the Stormwater Pollution Prevention Plan. They'll have provisions in there for it, which DEC and the town will be an approval process for. And then,
Is your mic on, Jason?
yes.
Okay. What was the other, green infrastructure?
Green initiatives. I got a comment here with no name and address. Again, please put your name and at least your street in there so we have that on the file. This one is, I find it difficult to believe that all the apartments in Baldwinsville are full. Jody from Hunter Drive. There's something in writing that the Hunter Drive access will remain closed for good and not opened in the future, even if this new development wants it. How long in writing will the access remain closed?
Yeah, the connection to Hunter Drive is for emergency purposes, predominantly the fire department. That is going to be maintained by the town highway department. It's going to be closed off with a gate or a chain such that you will not have access through it.
As far as permanency, the town will ensure that that remains blocked off and is a permanent thing.
It'll be part of the approved plan for the town.
Jason, can I say one thing? We did have one comment come in this morning, and it was regarding the traffic studies. The time period which they were conducted in was during COVID, and the person questioned how legitimate those studies may have been due to people working from home and school buses were limited, and for a while not at all. And so we reached out to Brandon, we reached out to the people that conducted the study, and I can read you the feedback on that. Gordon Stansberry, he's the consulting person that handles probably most of these traffic studies in central New York. COVID impacts on the area traffic volumes has been an ongoing issue within traffic studies. I have been developing project-specific adjustment factors for each traffic study based on counts collected and historical count data that is available in the area. To data, my adjustment factors have been universally accepted on every study completed since the pandemic began, likely because I have tried to remain on the conservative side, erring on the side of overly inflating volumes rather than having them be too low. And he goes on to say, please see the third paragraph on page 3 of the Kregel housing traffic study for a complete explanation of the adjustments that were made in this study to account for COVID impacts. And again, that study, both studies, the Tapestry and the one for the whole housing tract, is up on the town's website. Anybody can go there. So you go to paragraph 3 on page 3, you can read this for yourself. In short, the November 2020 traffic counts collected on Downer Street were found to be 22 to 23% lower than historical traffic volumes in the eastbound direction during the morning and evening peak hours, and the westbound volumes were found to be 7 to 17% lower than the historical volumes during the morning and evening peak hours. In order to be conservative in the traffic study, all traffic volumes during all 3 peak hours were increased by a factor of 20%. Both New York State DOT and Onondaga County DOT have reviewed the recent studies completed by GTS Consulting in the area and have concurred with the 20% adjustment factor used to account for COVID impacts on existing traffic volumes. Please let me know if there are additional questions. So just wanted to get that out there because I'm sure a question will come up on the traffic studies.
Yep, there's one right here. Next question. Can you please summarize the result of the traffic study? How much more traffic is expected? Will there be any changes to the existing roadways besides adding a turning lane at Walgreens? Is there room to put that lane in? Did the traffic study assess how much more traffic there will be in the village, the Four Corners, schools, etc.? That's from Mark LaRue on Hunter. The only road change that was proposed in the traffic study was the turn lane down by Walgreens. And it is tight down there. There's a utility pole, traffic signal boxes, the fire hydrant, some sidewalks down there. So there are some constraints there. Once the developer gets that surveyed and his engineer has a chance to take a look at it and get it laid out, then it'll be obvious whether or not a turning lane will fit in there. It'll fit, just what kind of utilities need to be relocated to accomplish that.
I believe the predominant traffic will be exiting, as the engineer pointed out, down Kregel Road with the extra turn lane and going to 690 is the predominant traffic pattern that the traffic study showed up. I don't have the full numbers here in front of me.
I know that in reading the executive summaries on both of those, it seemed to indicate that there certainly was enough capacity to handle the traffic that this project would generate. Like I said, they'd have to build a right turn lane. As far as over in the village on Route 48 in the Four Corners, I would assume that's something DOT is going to take into consideration and would be part of their comments, state DOT coming back. So that'll be probably part of their input.
Okay. And as far as the numbers, we don't have those right here in front of us. They're here in the building. If you'd like to stop in next week sometime, I can go through the report with you, show you what the numbers are, and whittle down the 700 pages of traffic study into something more understandable. We got a question from Jake on Hunter Drive. Who owns the land that the gate is on? That would be
Be a town road. Town right, I shouldn't say, town right away would be the town.
okay. From
Jason, can you ask them to please, not just their first name, but their second name as well?
Sure.
Last name.
Yep. You just did. All right. Another question regarding that, Sean and Amy Stewart on Kregel Road. With regard to the gate, why is it needed? Why not keep it open all the time?
Well, I think that's been brought up by several people who live in the Comstock tract. They don't want the traffic from this development cutting through their existing development, and I can appreciate that. So it's like Brandon said, down in Traybrook, they have one back at Van Ness Road. The people on Van Ness Road didn't want all the development traffic going through their existing highway either. So I think it's pretty obvious why it's needed and why it should be gated. They just don't want the flow through of traffic.
Okay, and then we have a comment from Dan Shaw on Brickyard Road. Is the sale of the property contingent on the zone change from R40 to PUD, or is the property already sold to Brolex?
It's contingent on the change to PUD.
Here's a comment here. Nobody's name and number or name and address on it. It has been noted that the developer on the owner's behalf has contacted Alliance Archaeological Services Incorporated to study the historic and indigenous people's ancestry on the parcel of land. How much of land will be studied intensely? Has this company investigated the existing information which has already been made available? Approximately how long will this investigation take? Has the developer investigated the existing information?
We've received the existing information. The third party that we hired will work directly with SHPO to give us the guidance and telling us exactly what type of studies they want us to do. So it's not really up to us. SHPO will give us the lead on, what type of survey of the property we have to do.
Okay. Yeah, and there can be several steps to that process in the investigation as well. Site survey, documentation research, possible digs and things like that. So it's hard to give an answer of how long that will take. And then we have from Andy Bowes, as to green initiatives, current condition practices are very wasteful. Where will the debris go? Can the town go? Where does the debris go? Can the town take it? Apartments have been built using modular construction as being more cost effective. So as far as construction debris, that usually goes to the Camillus Construction and Demolition landfill. As far as waste materials, spoils, if you will, most of these projects, they try to balance the cut and fill, so they're not importing or exporting soils or materials, because then that gets expensive. Okay, we have Michelle from Hunter Drive. I read the traffic study. It was not correct. The times are false. The traffic study was conducted at 6:20 a.m. at the corner of Tappan. There's no question there. And then from Mark LaRue on Hunter, can you please summarize the anticipated effects of this development on the school district?
That will be the Ballsville Central School District is one of the agencies that will be contacted for their input.
And that's the last question I have right now. If anybody has any questions, please type them in. I'll throw the map up on the screen.
So you know how many's on.
40 right now.
Anyone have any more questions?
Okay. From Mary Davis on Crego Road. Can you clarify and define what the zone PUD, planned unit development, actually allows? It is understood that under the umbrella of a PUD, the property can be wide open to every type of residential and commercial development combined. Township 5, Village Green, Radisson, as examples.
Yes, a PUD allows for mixed-use development. That's part of the review by the zoning planning board that's going to be going through on what exactly the development will consist of, being various size lots, as well as the apartments, and looking at the road layout and other things. So right now, we would not be looking at lots smaller than 15,000 square feet. That would typically be our R15 zone in the town. Just to give you a reference, the Comstock track is an R10 or 10,000 square foot lots over there. But there would be nothing smaller than the 15,000 square foot lots. And right now, the map that the developer has proposed is 100-foot wide lots throughout the track. So this is just a conceptual by them. It will be reviewed how it will morph into a final plan that they may be able to look at and develop with better roads and other things as we look at the whole site, as we do the whole review. And that will include whether the apartments are there or move, or whether there are apartments at all.
The PUD allows commercial under our zoning, but is not applicable to this project. The application for this project for a change to PUD is for residential, for the home shown on the concept plan and for the apartment shown on the concept plan. Nothing else. There's no commercial tied with this project, and there won't be unless there's another application filed. The town board or the planning board has pretty much said the commercial area is along Downer Street. It's not going to splash up into the Comstock area. So.
Okay, and then Mary Frances has a question. Can we expand upon the timeframes that traffic studies are done on various roads? I don't have the exact numbers in front of me, but typically traffic counts are taking over a 3-hour period in the morning and the evening and on Saturdays. And then the peak hour is adjusted based on the traffic taken over those 3-hour periods. To the earlier question that counts were taken at 6:20, the 3-hour period of counts, if they started at 6:20, would have gone to 9:20. Then the peak hour would have fallen within that time frame somewhere. And that's what they base the traffic impacts on. From Andy Bose, would the town consider working with a residents committee?
The planning zoning board is going to be setting up a subcommittee consisting of town board members and planning board members. The subcommittee will be meeting. These will be meetings open to the public they can listen in on what the developer and what the planning or the committee is doing. Also, the normal zoning planning monthly meeting is open to the public as well.
Would the people that attend those PUD committee meetings have the opportunity at the end, say, of the meeting to offer input?
Depends on the meeting. As we get going, I believe we're going to be there'll be open meetings that as we go forward, we will be entertaining questions, but we want to get the first meeting, we're going to try and get our agenda straightened out and where we're going and the questions, but then follow-on meetings, yes, there will be questions entertained.
Okay.
All right, and then Mary Davis on Kregel Road is looking for a little expansion. She has an it in here. It says, but it can and will be allowed once a PUD is allowed, correct? I believe she's talking about commercial, and the answer is no. The application is specific that the town board has considered for residential houses and apartments. That's it. If there was to be a commercial component, they would have put in a commercial lot in that application, and that would have been forwarded to the planning board for recommendation as well. Anybody else want to expand on that at all? Okay. Michael Chansky on Buccaneer Bend. Do you anticipate that this housing project will lead to future retail development in the River Mall and 84 lumber areas? Will there possibly be future commercial development further down Route 31?
The primary corridor in this area for the town of Van Buren is Downer Street. No development or commercial development off of Downer Street has been envisioned in the comprehensive plan as it's been revised through the many years out here, the last 30 or 40 years even. So it's the prime commercial is there. You have the shopping center. You may have a doctor's office or a legal office located somewhere off of Downer, but commercial, meaning stores and shops, will be off of Downer Street.
Okay. And then Thomas from Hunter Drive. Earlier in the meeting, you mentioned a sewer lift station and pointed to the Reeves farmland directly behind Tops. Is that land being included in this sale? Can you show us exactly where the lift stations will be? The lift station is actually right behind the Top supermarket. It's not shown on that plan. The focus was the Kregel farm property. That's one option for the sewers, and the county has a gravity sewer on Downer Street that is also an option to hook into. And as far as I'm going to correct me if I'm wrong, Brandon, on this, but the engineering on the site isn't far enough along to identify where pump stations will be and things like that.
I think it's, as Claude had said, this project will have sewers.
Correct. Okay, now we got Mark LaRue on Hunter. Did the traffic study evaluate the impacts of construction-related traffic during construction? Can this project be delayed until traffic controls are installed at the 690 exit ramps?
The rate New York State DOT is going to signalize those on and off ramps, that could be a decade out. So no, I don't think construction would be held up waiting for DOT. DOT's people that sat on the Downer Street corridor study themselves said that those interchanges would fail by 2015. Here we are 6 years later and DOT still doesn't even have those on the drawing board. So let's put blame where blame needs to be put on DOT. You deal with that every day if you utilize those interchanges without this development. So we urge you to call Assemblyman Magarelli, who is the chair of the Transportation Committee, and try to spur that on. We do it every year with him here. When he has his town hall meetings, I understood it was brought up again this year when he had his Zoom meeting for his town hall meeting. So no, I don't think we'd be waiting for DOT to signalize those. I think that's the state has to do their job as well as the county DOT. So you got anything on that, Tony?
No, I think you covered it. As far as construction traffic versus full traffic, construction traffic is going to be less than the full residential traffic.
Okay, and that is the last question I have on here right now. Anybody else have any questions, please type them in.
Any feedback that people can't hear us tonight?
No.
Okay, good.
Okay. I'm not sure who this is from. At Tuesday's meeting, it was stated there was misinformation about the 8.2 acre parcel of land to the northwest corner of Kregel Farms property. It was stated this parcel was assessed for $144,000 and the purchase was offered for $147,000. The February 17th, 2021 board meeting board meeting approved the offer for this property and currently owns this land. Who currently owns this land? When was the assessment changed? Who made the purchase offer and where does the offer currently stand?
Okay, at Tuesday's meeting, it was not said that it was appraised at $144,000. The appraisal was for $44,000. The purchase offer we have on it is for $130,000. So let's get the facts correct here. $44,000 appraisal, $130,000 is the purchase offer. The town of Van Buren picked that property up as a landlocked parcel from the developer on the west side of 690, Dan Barnaba, when Harbor Heights project was finalized. He came to the town and asked us if we would be interested in that parcel. So we took ownership of it. Obviously, the only person that lot is really worth anything to right now is this developer that's here with us tonight. They are the ones that have offered the town of Van Buren as owner $130,000 for that 8.2 acres.
Okay, Andy Bose is thanking everybody who participated in discussions for their neighborhood. Mary Frances Sabin, if you're saying that this review may go into 2022, approximately how long after the review would it take to be for the actual development would start?
We generally, if you look at prior projects that we've been able to get approvals, most of the time we're somewhere around 6 months after the approval to begin construction. Just because usually there's financing and planning in place that has to be finalized.
Thomas on Hunter, was a parcel advertised for sale by the town? And is the 8-acre parcel sale contingent on the zoning change?
Well, without the Crego selling me the parcel, the property's again landlocked.
We were advised by our attorneys it did not have to be advertised, but we did have to have it appraised before we sold it.
Okay, and that's the last question I got on here. From Hendel on Division Street, what part of the development will be done first, single-family homes or apartments?
We will probably do some of the apartments and some of the single families in parallel together.
Okay. Got a few more in here. Mary Davis on Kregel Road. Could you express the length of time this project could take to complete?
I would anticipate it's probably about a 4-year completion from the beginning of the first road that gets put into hopefully the last house that's sold.
Okay. And this is expounding on the question about the 8-acre parcel. There's river frontage on the property. Why doesn't it have to be advertised?
I'm not an attorney. All I know is what our attorneys told them, and they were asked that question. They said we did not have to advertise it. Maybe it's because it was landlocked. I have no idea. But the attorneys advised us that we did not have to advertise it.
We have Mike on Hunter Drive. Per Jody's question on the gate separating Hunter, is there any assurances that this will remain closed in the future after the current administration is no longer here?
It's been asked and answered already. It's part of the approvals for the project. The town would ensure that the gate is there and it is a permanent fixture.
Curtis York on Hunter Drive. Approximately how many homes do you think would be constructed each year?
Probably around 30.
That's the last one I have right now. Amy Van Wee and Tappan. The 8-acre lot is not technically landlocked because it has river frontage and can be accessed by the river.
Is that a question or a comment?
I guess it's just a comment.
A question's been asked many times on the gate at Hunter Drive. It brings to mind 30 years ago, the Crandon Terrace was extended all the way up to O'Brien Road and went behind St. Augustine's Church. And the church needed an emergency access to the back of their parking lot. That has continued to be gated or chained off this last 30 years through many changes in administration of the town.
Any other additional questions?
Dropping off.
That was something coming in.
Do we have any other additional questions?
Okay. I got one here. From Sean and Amy Stewart on Kregel Road. Once the archaeological survey is performed on the Kregel farm, will the results be made public before they are presented to SHPO for recommendation on how to proceed with the preservation of the Native American artifacts on this land? And some of the new develops in this area, for example, the Seneca Golf Course, it can be assumed that there may be Native American origins on that land. We know that there are two of the longest Iroquois longhouses in New York State on this property, in addition to artifacts dating back to prehistory 2,000, 4,000 years ago. This was uncovered on a small portion of the over 100-acre parcel. How can you justify a subdivision over land that is sacred to the Native American community? Well, in our correspondence with SHPO, they have been in contact with the Onondaga Nation, who had some interest in it. So we will get input from them through SHPO on how to proceed with that. Again, if you're going to ask a question, please put your name and road on there for the record. This one doesn't have one. But where did the information come for the need for more apartments?
I recently did a market study through CoStar for another project that I'm doing in North Syracuse. And so we did a market study for all of Onondaga County not even 3 months ago.
That was the last question. I got someone else trying to come in. Okay, here's one from Mark LaRue on Hunter Drive. I don't understand why we could go ahead with this project before the traffic improvements at 690 are complete. I understand the frustrations with DOT, but we would have to deal with it until, if and when the improvements are made.
You do now? You're dealing with it every day now, even before this development, so.
All right, and then Andy Bose. Please let Brandon respond to the question of the archaeological survey. That goes back to the one from the Stewarts.
I don't have all the information from the third party that we hired. I know that there was tests done 30 years ago. I know that a lot of artifacts were given to museums or to the Onondaga Nation. And I'm not aware of yet what's on the property, what's not on the property. I would like to bring to your attention that the property has been farmed for 85 years, which means they've disturbed the soil year after year. So I mean, it's not like the land is set or nobody's used it and it's been untouched. So obviously we'll have to see what comes up from the third party with SHPO, and we'll assess it as soon as we get all the information.
Okay, Tom Shaw on Kregel Road. This is a statement, not a question, that he believes the population in the state as well as the county is dwindling.
Well, the good news is, hopefully it's not. Hopefully we've got good leadership at the county level. Hopefully they're going to attract new jobs, and people want to move here, and we'll have housing to fill. That statement, in my opinion, is what's wrong with this county altogether. You know, we have to encourage the next generation to want to live here, have jobs here, have places to live here, have things to do in our community. Throwing our hands up in the air and saying we're losing, you know, market share to the rest of the states, I don't know what good that does us.
There was an article today in the paper about United Auto gonna have possibly up to, I think it was 1,500 jobs right up at the corner of Hinkle Boulevard and Route 48 for a new warehouse there for United Auto Supply. They currently employ 300 down at the old PNC warehouse, so that'll be an increase in employees and possibly the need for more housing there, apartments, whatever.
All right, that was the last question, statement.
If the questions are ending, we're gonna close the meeting then. So we'll give you a couple extra minutes here if there's any last minute questions. If you don't get them answered here tonight and you think of some, you can always email them in to clerk@townofvanburen.com. We'll try to get answers for you, either through the developer or through Tony or myself.
Okay, we got, I think, 2 more in here. This was addressed to you, Claude. So by your comment, do you feel that it is okay to increase the traffic problem? This is from Michelle on Hunter Drive.
It's not really up to me whether the traffic increases or not. I think it's going to increase whether this development goes in or not. You know, this is the last corner of the county to develop. And, you know, we wouldn't be experiencing anything that other areas of the county haven't already experienced.
Okay, and then from Sean and Amy Stewart on Kregel Road. The land has been farmed since 1856. This question is for Brolex. The board and town supervisor have copies of the archaeological survey as a developer embarking on this enormous project, that will not only affect lives of the people of our community and the preservation of our past. How have you made yourself familiar with the survey?
Question. One more time.
How have you made yourself familiar with the archaeological survey that was in the area? Do you have copies of the,
Yeah, the third party that we hired is obtained copies of these studies. I haven't reviewed them yet myself. We're waiting for the entire study to be done and basically taking the lead from SHPO, what they want us to continue to study or survey of the property.
okay, and from Hendel on Division, will entry-level Amazon and warehouse jobs be able to afford these places?
Well, I don't think your line workers would be able to. I assume there'll probably be some executives in higher paying jobs from those, so there might be some from Amazon.
Well, why can't, if you have two people in a household working, making $16 to $18 an hour, can easily afford an apartment. And depending on if one has a better job than the other, could afford a nice new house. Mortgage rates are historical lows and makes it more affordable, and you can buy more house than you could before.
Also, Lockheed Martin is employing a lot of people right now, and those are technical jobs which are pretty high paying, so they certainly could afford it.
Okay, Tom Shaw from Kregel Road. Why can't questions be asked directly?
Because we do not have the camera set up and everything due to COVID, and we don't feel it's prudent stewardship to expend $10,000 to $12,000 for what's hopefully going to be another 2 or 3 months of this COVID lockdown.
I believe this is from Amy and Sean Stewart. I don't know why you have not reviewed the archaeological study, Brandon.
Because if I review it or if I have not reviewed it, they're still gonna require me to do another review of most likely from SHPO. There's gonna be additional reviews that are requested. So when we get all the information, we can review it at once.
Okay. This is from Mark LaRue. Claude stated, we are dealing with the 690 traffic problem now, which is true. The issue is that this development will make it worse. Why should we deal with that? As part of the review process, we're going to be reaching out to the county, which controls that portion of Downer Street, and New York State DOT, which is aware of the intersection there at 690. So they will have input about if they need additional measures taken to help with traffic flow. If anybody else has anything to add to that?
Well,
It's
what I
not
read
our
earlier regarding the traffic studies that have been done for this, they have both gone to New York State DOT already and to Onondaga County DOT. So New York State DOT is aware of what Gordon Stansberry identified with those interchanges that they are in failure currently. And they were already aware of it. So they know they've got to do something there. They need to get on the stick and get it going.
They were part of the committee that sat on the Downer Street corridor study as well.
From 2008, that was finalized. So they've had more than adequate time to address it. It's just they elect not to.
Okay, we got Mike on Buccaneer Bend. This is just a statement, but I would welcome the revitalization this project could bring to our area. Okay.
Thank you.
Terry York on Hunter Drive. Will the homes be built in sections, and which section do you anticipate will be constructed first?
The houses will be built in sections. I really can't answer which section it will be first. Obviously we have to see how the plan finalizes first, because it'll be the first conceptual plan in the history of planning to be the one that we send up here is the one that actually gets approved. There's usually changes just due to engineering, and also input, from other third parties that we deal with. So I can't really specify exactly which section will be first, but as soon as we get closer to a final plan, I can give you a better answer.
It's usually the section closest to the sewer connection. But there's a couple options for sewer. Yeah, here's, okay. There's no name in the chat here, but the traffic study was done during the pandemic when school is at half capacity and many are working from home. How is this study accurate?
That was asked and answered earlier. I read a lengthy thing here. They added 20% to all the calculations to make up for that. The New York State DOT and Onondaga County DOT concur with adding that 20% to the numbers that they found during the pandemic when the study was run.
Okay. From Julie LaRue on Hunter Drive. Can Brandon point out on the map the 8-acre site you were talking about earlier? I'll put the map up on the screen here. And it's the parcel in the upper leftmost part of the map here. There's a cul-de-sac on it. You can see that most of the development has a light brown under it, which is the tilled fields, and then the greenish area off to the left, just east of 690, is that 8-acre parcel. So, yeah, it's a triangle-shaped piece. Starts right just about behind the apartments and goes to the river. Okay, and Sue from Cook Drive. Oh, then why can't we delay the project until the people of our town can be more involved and have a voice?
I think the planning board chairman answered that earlier. There will be what's called PUD committee meetings. Those are open to the public. And those, obviously we can't, while this is still going on, accommodate 50, 60 people, but certainly 4 or 5 people could sit in on those. And Tony has indicated that they will be allowed to have some input when it's appropriate.
Okay, Mary Davis on Kregel Road. Does the developer have plans to protect and enhance the integrity of the 2 historic homes that are pillars of our community and located in the center of this proposal? From your standpoint, do you see buffers, berms, large evergreen borders incorporated?
They could be staples of the community, but, you know, the people that are gonna be moving here are gonna be staples of the community. I mean, at the end of the day, if they want more privacy, they can put up trees, they can build a berm. I don't know why it's my responsibility as a developer to protect that. The Crees have owned this land for a long time, and they're entitled to sell the land. And this is the best use for the land. You know, we're not asking to put a warehouse in your backyard. We're not asking to put a car wash. This is more housing, good high-end housing, people that want to be a part of your community. You know, when people moved up my community or around me, you would hope to have them with open arms. I don't understand the mentality of this. You can't live next door to me. You know, this is, we should be inviting people to our community so that we can enhance our community.
All right. Sue from Cook Drive just has a comment that she didn't think the town board has the best interest of town at heart. Thanks for becoming the city of Syracuse. Here's another one without a name and address. I was told the homes would range from $375,000 to $500,000. Do you feel these will sell on quarter-acre lots?
Well, currently in Traybrook, we have a price range right now of $325,000 to $1.15 million. People want to live in your community. You should be excited, proud. Land is not cheap. It's expensive. It's expensive to develop. And probably the person that's spending $325,000 or $375,000 is more likely to be on a smaller lot. Somebody that wants to build a bigger house is more likely to be in a bigger lot. Doesn't mean they have to be, it's just usually the way it shakes out. Again, I go back to the same thing I've said probably 4 times. It's something that I think to be excited that the community has been able to maintain a draw for the school district, the municipality, the enhancements to Downer Street, the amenities that it offers, that people want to live there. There are other places that people can live. That is true, but they want to come to your community. And that's a better tax basis. It makes the different municipality services that we as patrons of the community get to use have to be funded. And if you look at our apartments, we're generally a lot of the time, market rate apartments don't have as many people in the school district. Sometimes they're young professionals, sometimes they're older community that doesn't want to own. Again, more tax basis for the community that's not straining the school district. And I would wish that people could see the excitement of the draw to come to your community opposed to saying, we're not here and we don't want you.
Jason, one thing we neglected to answer earlier, somebody asked something about 84 lumber. Taco Bell just got approvals for a new store there just a couple weeks ago. So there'll probably be construction starting, I would guess, in the next couple months there on the old 84 lumber site, demolition of the building and a new Taco Bell building going up there.
Okay. And several people have commented on not being able to speak in public. There will be public hearings going forward. This is a public information meeting for a developer to present his idea here. And there will be opportunities in the future for the public to input again. And we may have to have meetings in larger facilities if COVID restrictions get released a little bit. Okay, and then we have another question here from Sean and Amy Stewart on Kregel Road to you, Brandon. This is not a sufficient answer to a very important question. You would be investing a large amount of money to develop this land. Why have you not done more research in connection to Native American history and the impact digging foundations and roads on this land would have on their cultural heritage and our community's history?
I am doing the research. I'm paying for the research. I'm hired a third party and I can't do anything until I get the answers back from SHPO. So I don't know how much more you want me to do until then. I'm not an expert.
One of the first things that the Planning Zoning Board is doing, or will be doing, will be going out to the involved agencies, of which SIPO is an involved agency. As the developer said, he's already made contact with that agency. Well, we're going to make, as a Planning Zoning Board, direct contact with that agency to get their input on how, the contractor, or excuse me, developer needs to proceed. And this is one of the first steps we anticipate, because it may take some time to get that answer. That's where the timetable here is to be flexible.
Okay, and the statement from Mary Davis doesn't feel that a development capacity is needed and that the community is not excited about it. They have a petition with close to 2,000 signatures, which reflects the sentiment.
Again, if somebody can provide the town with a copy of that petition where it is now, it's our understanding that people from anywhere in the world can sign that petition. We are interested in people that are from Baldwinsville and particularly the town of Buren. So if somebody can provide a copy of that to us at this point in time, we would appreciate it. And for information, I have had calls from the Comstock tract people, several in there, that are not opposed to this. So when somebody speaks, they shouldn't try to speak for everyone.
Okay, and then There was another question from Amy and Sean Stewart. That was an original one, but Brandon started answering before I got to it. Unfortunately, it has become status quo to desecrate this land and attempt to appease the Native American community by naming a golf course or subdivision after a Native American tribe. There's a question mark there, but that's not really a question.
Jason, can you repeat that?
Yep. Unfortunately, it has become status quo to desecrate this land and attempt to appease the Native American community by naming a golf course or subdivision after a Native American tribe.
Well, again, I think it's been stated many times that we recognize some historical significance of this property. That's why going out to SHPO has already begun. And when this first came in, the developer was referenced that this is going to be a major item to be reviewed and developed. And that will be one of the first steps that the planning and zoning board will be looking at, is how to approach SHPO and find out what has to be investigated with regard to the significance of the history of this property.
SHPO will tell the developer what they have to do as far as research and possible digs or whatever. The town won't be telling them, SHPO will be telling them that. And if the developer wants to continue with what he's being told he has to do, he'll do it and see what is found or not found. And then SHPO will review the findings and they will say, we have no problem with it being developed, or no, you can't develop it at all, or you have to avoid an acre here or 5 acres there. We don't know what the outcome is going to be. This is very preliminary stages of this whole process. Like we say, it's going to take months, possibly into next year. So, you know, we know the archaeological thing is very important, and we can't say it any more than we already have, really. It's going to be reviewed, and SHPO will be steering that boat and that research.
Okay, and I have a comment here from Sharon Slate on West Sorrel Hill. Many folks find it difficult to get excited over losing the overall rural atmosphere of our town. It results for many in a lessening of quality of life due to increased traffic, longer waits to get off 690, longer lines, grocery store, bank, etc. Now from Sean and Amy Stewart on Crego. So I was saying they'll provide the town with the petition with the names and addresses by the end of the week. Tracy Smart has a question. What is the effect going to be on existing businesses during the entire project?
Probably a good thing. Should bring more people to the restaurants, grocery store, nail salon. I would think.
Okay, and Andy Bose, Brandon, what would Bro likes to do to enhance our community?
I think that's what we've been talking about the whole time. I mean, there's a demand for people that want to live in your community, and we're going to try to give them a nice place to live by building them a nice community that's well planned out in conjunction with the planning board, so that people that are drawn to live in the Van Buren Baldwinsville School District have a place to go.
Okay. There's a question on what SHPO stands for. I answered that in the chat. It's the State Historic Preservation Office. That was the last question I had there. Oh, okay, one just popped up here. Okay. If the developer changes his mind about the purchase of this property, would the Kregels consider rezoning it to agricultural? This would open up many possibilities for better use of the land and also possibly as much of a financial gain.
We can't answer that. It'd be a Kregel decision, not ours.
Okay, so Thomas on Hunter Drive. You mentioned that the petition can be signed from anywhere in the world, so those signatures should not be considered. Are the agencies that are reviewing the traffic patterns for this developer local to the Van Buren area? Should those opinions not be considered if they are not local to the Van Buren area? As far as the traffic studies, Onondaga County Department of Transportation is local. They'll be reviewing it, and New York State DOT right down downtown Syracuse will be reviewing the traffic study for this project as well.
Yes, and as far as the petition, if it's somebody from Michigan that's signing it, I don't think the planning board or the town board is going to put a lot of stock into somebody's that's not even from our state or certainly outside of our county here, unless they have some particular vested interest, with the archaeological and the Native American history there or something. This is the Baldwinsville community, and we want to hear from people from Baldwinsville.
Okay, and this is from Munger on Hunter Drive. Does the Iroquois Nation need to be consulted with rather than just the Onondaga Nation?
I would assume SHPO would also guide that.
We have Tracy Smart. There's only one road to the project. I don't believe it will have no impact, or should I say no negative impact. So let's come back. She had a comment earlier about, let me scroll back up here.
Impact on businesses.
Yep, going to be on existing businesses during the entire project. During construction, if there's some work on Kregel Road, widening, there may be some temporary delays for people who use the existing businesses. But I'm not sure, if it's appointment driven businesses or what out through there that she's concerned about.
She has the hairdressing place there on Kregel.
Okay.
So yes, there might be some inconveniences while that intersection is being worked on.
But you might have another 500 patrons that might come to your business.
Okay, and from Andy Bose, Brandon, are there planned community areas in development? For example, community rooms for apartments, et cetera?
We haven't finalized all the amenities yet for the apartments, but most likely there'll be community rooms, gyms. Usually like the dog washing station, things like that nature that we've done in another community. But I don't have the exact amenity list yet.
Here's a comment with no name or address. I would assume most people who would sign a petition have a vested interest in the property, inheritance being one of them. And that's the last I have on here. Okay. I believe this is from Amy and Sean Stewart again. The archaeological survey will be performed by a firm employed by Brolex, just as a traffic study was completed by a firm employed by Brolex. Can we concur that the recommendation to SHPO may be biased? SHPO can only make recommendations based on the report presented to them by Brolex.
I don't think any of us can question the integrity of any professional firm, and I really think that's a low blow, to be honest.
They're not employed, I mean, they're contracted, there's a service they provide, they don't work for me.
And in the archaeological field, people get into archaeology because they are interested in archaeology and history. And that was the last statement I had here, or question? Okay, it's from Julie on Hunter Drive. Have the town leaders considered that the people of Baldwinsville may not want another 500 people in our town?
Well, let's put it this way. I'm sure they don't like their taxes to go up, and the only way that we can help control that is with tax-based expansion. That's either through commercial, industrial, or residential development. So they either want expansion of any of those or all of those, or would they rather have their taxes go up? That's any municipality. It's not just the town of Van Buren, it's the village of Baldwinsville, it's the town of Lysander, town of DeWitt, Manlius, anywhere. That's the reality we live in. The state of New York, the federal government is the same way. So it's, you know, it's either your tax base is expanding or your taxes have to go up to support the government that's there.
Okay. Again, if you're going to make a comment or a question, please put your name and address on here. This person believes that there will be more than 500 people with this project. Taxes will not go down with this project. All considered, it will go up.
Got a comment?
Yep, comment.
Jason, if they can't put their names and address or the road, then don't read them anymore.
All right, anybody else have any questions?
Okay, we're not seeing any more coming on, so like I said earlier, if you have more questions or comments, you can send them to clerk@townofvanburen.com, and they will be relayed on to the appropriate people to get you an answer. I have the feeling that on some of these questions, no matter what is said, there's not going to be agreement, and everybody's entitled to their own opinion. So with that being said, if you have questions, comments, send them in. With that, we'll close tonight's public information meeting, and thank you all for participating and send in your comments and questions. Thank you and good night.